Tell all you love that you love them so, because even if you do, they might not know, and one day we'll all be gone. Taste the wind, don't let it blow on by. Sing songs of love, let the music get you high, and when it's said and done, you'll know the sun will shine on.
I call New Mexico U.S. Senators Ben Ray Lujan and Martin Heinrich, and our U.S. Congressman Melanie Stansbury. And I keep asking them over and over, when will you have the balls and the conscience to say no to the U.S.-backed Israeli mass murders in Gaza? When Israel murders 20,000 men, women, and kids, 100,000, 1,000,000, every person in Gaza? Absolutely evil, unlimited revenge. Now, millions more people fear and hate the Israeli government and the U.S. government. I voted for Biden in 2020, but I sure as hell will not vote for him in 2024. And if Trump is running, I sure won't vote for him. I will not vote for either one. Hell no to genocide. I dedicate today's program to dear Jose, a bisexual, very attractive man from Mexico. I met him summer 1991 at the Spence Hot Springs in Jemez. I had sex with Jose 76 times many years ago. I kept track. More times than with any other man in my life. When Jose was a kid, his dad beat him. And this is my poem for Jose. A healing pleasure. For the man whose dad beat his ass when he was a boy, to have his ass kissed, licked, and fucked by me, a man who deeply loves him, is, I hope, a healing baptism of intense pleasure to the abused spot of pain and humiliation inflicted by an angry man many years before. Slow, man-given healing for a cruel, ugly, man-made scar. Sadly, Jose was deported to Mexico years ago. Exercise alone is not enough to be healthy. We need to eat only healthy food. Raw plant foods are best. Jim Fixx, F-I-X-S, XS, two X's, wrote one of the most popular books on exercise called The Complete Book of Running. It was on bestseller lists for almost 2 years in the late 1970s. Until his mid-30s, Jim Fixx smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day, weighed 220 pounds. At 35, he stopped smoking, and soon he was running 80 miles a week, including marathons. Jim Fixx lost all his fat, but sadly, he did not change his diet much. In his book, Jim Fixx quoted a doctor who said any non-smoker fit enough to run a marathon in less than 4 hours will never suffer a fatal heart attack. Jim Fixx's father had died at 43 from a heart attack. But Jim Fix believed that running daily and not smoking would protect him. But Jim Fix, the nation's leading advocate on the health benefits of running, tragically died of a massive heart attack while running. He was only 52, and 3 of his heart arteries were more than 70% blocked, and 1 artery was 99% blocked. Exercise is wonderful. Exercise is necessary to be healthy. But exercise cannot make up for eating unhealthy crap. We need exercise and only healthy food. Raw plant foods, preferably organic, are best. No kid needs a $50 toy, but every kid needs parents who will answer their questions truthfully, with no bullshit. Every kid needs parents who will never say, "Why are you asking that question? None of your business. Go watch TV. Go out and play." If the parents are very busy at the moment, tell the kid, "I will answer your question this evening." No 18-year-old or no adult needs a new car. But teenagers need parents who welcome personal questions. Personal questions about the parents' lives, their mistakes, their lessons, their fears, their deepest feelings. Teenagers need parents that teenagers can tell anything from their lives, no matter how much the parents do not approve. Teenagers need parents that teenagers can ask any question about family secrets and can talk freely about sex and about death. All the expensive gifts to your kids are never a substitute for being totally open, totally honest with your children, whether they're 8 years old or 68. And having your children know they can be totally open, totally honest with you, so they need never fear you will stop loving them. Many men who yell faggot at others have sex with men, or they want to, but do not have the balls to say so. Some men are terrified of their hidden desire. Some men make fun of, curse, threaten, beat up, even murder gays, lesbians, bisexuals, trans persons. Many men live a double life. A gay white guy told me a married Chicano picked a fight with him. And later, they both were at the same party. And as the night wore on, the gay white guy and the married Chicano got it on, not with fists, but in sex. The married Chicano went home to his wife, returned to the gay white guy for more sex. The gay white guy asked the married Chicano, "If you had these feelings for me, why did you pick a fight with me?" And the married Chicano answered honestly, "I could not let my friends know." Many or most men who love sex are bi-curious about sex with men, even if they have never done it with a man. Until any man on earth can freely tell his family, his friends, he enjoys sex with men with no shame, no fear, no guilt. And until any woman on earth can freely tell her family, her friends, she enjoys sex with women with no fear, no shame, no guilt. Our struggle for romantic freedom must continue. If you have friends who insult or attack gays, lesbians, bisexuals, trans persons, tell them you better stop persecuting them. Some people may wonder, why are you barking so loud? Why is this such a big deal to you? What are you running from? What are you trying to hide? This powerful study involved 3 groups of rats. The first group of rats were fed from birth diets of raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, raw whole grains. And these rats grew into completely healthy specimens, never suffered from any diseases. They grew rapidly. They never became fat. They reproduced with vigor and enthusiasm. They had healthy offspring. They were always playful and affectionate. And upon reaching an age equivalent to 80 human years, they were put to death. They were autopsied. And all their organs, all their glands, all their tissues appeared in perfect condition with no signs of aging or degeneration. The second group of rats were fed from birth diets of cooked foods, white bread, meat, milk, salt, soda, candy, cakes, vitamins, medicines. And these rats became fat. These rats were afflicted by the very same diseases that afflict humans today. Colds, fevers, pneumonia, poor eyesight, heart disease, cataracts, arthritis, cancer. And during the life cycle of this second group of rats, the rats were vicious. They were nervous. They were self-destructive. They had to be separated to keep them from killing each other. And their offspring were consistently ill and displayed the same behavior as their parents. And most of the second group died prematurely from diseases or various epidemics which swept through the colony. Autopsies performed on this group showed extensive degeneration in all the organs, all the glands, all the tissues of their bodies. Now, the third group of rats were fed a diet identical to the second group. The white bread, the meat, the milk, salt, soda, candy, cakes, vitamins, medicines, until they reached an equivalent human age of 40 years. And these rats displayed the same symptoms of ill health and self-destructive behavior as the second group. But at the end of this time period, the rats were placed on a strict water fast for several days. to get some of the poisons out of their bodies from what they had been eating. And then they were fed the diet of the first group: raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw nuts, raw whole grains. This diet was alternated with periods of fasting, again, to get rid of some of the shit that they had put into their bodies from the crap they had eaten earlier. And within 1 month, their health, their behavior changed dramatically. These rats became affectionate, playful, never became ill. Autopsies performed after the equivalent of 80 human years indicated this group had reversed its degenerative tissue damage. We can rejuvenate our bodies and our health by changing to eating only raw, living plant foods. Even if we're already in middle age or older, we can experience much better health if we make a complete break with the crap that we ate for many years. Many diamonds sold in the United States are heartbreaking stories of greed, violence, mutilation. African children are forced into slavery to mine diamonds. And if these African children fail to work or produce, they're beaten, punished, even their arms cut off. Why would anybody want to buy diamonds which have caused so much violence to African children? Many diamonds sold in the United States are these blood diamonds, agents of terror. And there's no easy way to know for sure if the diamond you buy is a blood diamond from the slavery of African children, mining them. So if you have a conscience, never buy diamond jewelry. And even if it's not a blood diamond, why waste money on something nobody needs while others in this world suffer hunger and cold and sickness with no home? I will never buy diamond jewelry the rest of my life. Boycott the whole diamond industry. I like jewelry, obviously, but I do not want diamond jewelry, and I do not want expensive jewelry. And I treasure jewelry that has been given to me. I love a heart connection with the person who gave it. How bad will the climate crisis get before most U.S. travelers are ashamed of driving cars thousands of miles and flying in planes thousands of miles for business or just for pleasure? How long until U.S. long-distance travelers stop bragging? How long until U.S. long-distance travelers stop boasting about how many states, how many countries they've traveled to? Many of these long-distance travelers would be ashamed, absolutely ashamed, of having their homes and their yards filthy and full of crap. But are they proud of poisoning our only home, Mother Earth, with many thousands of miles driven and flown? I have not traveled outside New Mexico since I returned from my dad's funeral in Illinois 29 years ago. The black activist Malcolm X said, "The worst crime whites have committed toward blacks, the worst crime whites have committed toward blacks, is teaching us to hate ourselves for being black." And I say one of the worst crimes many, but not all, preachers, priests, rabbis, imams, parents, teachers have committed toward us who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, is teaching us to reject and hate ourselves for whom we are sexually attracted to and in love with. And I compliment the many parents and teachers, preachers, priests, rabbis, imams who fully support openly gay, lesbian, bisexual, and trans persons. African American Daryl Davis converted more than a dozen members of the Ku Klux Klan from their racist ideology. African American Daryl Davis said, "When you sit down with somebody, one-on-one, you begin to find things that you have in common. And the more you build on that, the more you break down barriers." Davis first encountered racism when he was one of two African American students in his elementary school in Massachusetts. They pointed at me. They said, "We're going to send you back to Africa. If you don't go, you'll be exterminated." He said those white children had told him when he was in elementary school. Davis said the experience did not inspire him to hate, but made him want to understand why they were racist, to understand racism. Daryl Davis says, from that day forth, I made it a point to learn everything I could about supremacy, the idea that certain people, because of their color of skin or whatever, are better than other people. Davis, a professional piano player, said he first met a member of the KKK in the early 80s while he was playing with his band at a truck stop near Frederick, Maryland. Davis said he was approached by a man who complimented him on his piano playing. Davis said he learned the man was a white supremacist after a lengthy conversation. He looked back at me just as plain as day, and he said, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. The Klansman gave Davis the contact information for Roger Kelly, then the most powerful member of the KKK in Maryland. Davis said he set up his first private meeting with Kelly by having his white secretary, Davis's white secretary, call and schedule an appointment. And Davis said he and Kelly were on edge during their conversation. But they agreed to meet again. Davis said this man was the head of the Ku Klux Klan, and I was a black guy. But we were sitting at the same table talking. We were agreeing, we were disagreeing, but in everything we did, we were civilized about it. Davis said he continued to speak with Kelly, and they developed a respectful relationship. Davis said Kelly eventually renounced white supremacy. He gave it up. He changed. And he renounced the Ku Klux Klan. We human beings can wake up and change from our stupid, evil ways. A couple years back, Roger Kelly quit the Ku Klux Klan, Davis said. And when he left the Klan, he gave me his robe and hood, and now he'll come out with me on my lectures sometimes to talk. Davis said Kelly was not the only member of the KKK to give up the robe and hood. I've gotten many robes, many hoods from Klan's people from all over the country just because I sat down and I talked to people. He encouraged students to pursue dialogue as a way to respond to racism and hatred. And Davis said, anybody can do this. All you have to do is take the time to sit down and talk to people without making any assumptions about them. And then listen and share your thoughts with them. I strongly compliment African American Darrell Davis. My father's parents, my grandparents, Lloyd and Anna Schrader, worked hard as farmers for many, many years. They suffered sicknesses, the Great Depression, and even after retiring, they had a big garden, and they ran a small restaurant most Tuesdays at my parents' cattle auction market. My grandma greatly enjoyed cooking and seeing many people, including me, many years ago, eat her delicious food. And some folks came for miles to eat at that small restaurant. Back then, in the 1970s, I was still addicted to sugar. I was still addicted to meat and to cooked food. My grandma had never learned what I have learned about health my past 48 years from hundreds of articles, conversations, books, videos, speakers, and my own experiences. My grandpa washed the dishes at the restaurant. In the last years of his life, my grandpa and I kissed each other on our lips. And as far as I know, I was the only adult male he kissed on the lips. And my grandma also was affectionate to me. And I wish now I had spent more time with both of them. So if you have your grandparents or your parents, learn from what I just said. I wish I had spent more time with them. They both were good to me. And tragically, a severely abused 18-year-old white man, Dale, murdered my grandpa and grandma as they slept in bed, June 25th, 1976. I was 30 years old. Grandpa was 85, grandma was 82. And years later, Dale was arrested, confessed to his crime. He sincerely repented for murdering my grandparents. He appreciated my forgiveness and becoming his friend. And the first time I visited him in prison, tears came to his eyes. I have 60 letters he wrote me before he killed himself in prison. He suffered severe depression because of flashbacks of his crime. Memory is the worst punishment for anyone with a conscience. And if someone kills me and later truly repents, I ask my friends, I ask my family to offer that person forgiveness and friendship. I wish all U.S. presidents, Republican and Democrat, and other world leaders who have murdered many grandparents, many kids, many people of all ages in war would repent publicly as Dale did. And after Dale died, his mother wrote me, thanking me for becoming Dale's friend. A woman wrote, "These people who write in with sympathy for the poor teenagers of divorced or separated parents make me ill." This woman says, "I wish I had divorced my husband long before my children were teenagers. They would probably be much better adjusted to life than they are now. I asked my 14-year-old son if he wanted his father to move back in. His dad was hanging around the house at mealtime. My son was a quiet boy, a deep thinker. He said, 'Mom, I like Dad better when he does not live here.' This woman says, my son is now 34. On a recent visit, I asked him if he ever remembered seeing his father put his arms around me or kiss me. And he said, once, when he was leaving town. This man mentally abused the children and me. I could go on for hours. I can truthfully say that I have been happier the last 18 years since my divorce than I have ever been. I've adjusted pretty well, but my son needs counseling to get on with his life. The bottom line is this: there are worse things than a broken home." Signed, been there in Florence, South Carolina. A deeply moving testimony from a woman. The U.S. did 66 atomic and hydrogen bomb tests that took place in the Bikini Atoll, Marshall Islands, during the 1940s and 50s. The U.S. government intentionally, deliberately, left the inhabitants of a neighboring island behind in order to gauge the effects of the radioactive fallout on humans, the fallout from those dozens of atomic and hydrogen bomb tests. Talk about street gang kids doing evil. The U.S. government intentionally left the inhabitants of a neighboring island behind in order to gauge the effects of radioactive fallout on humans. Absolutely evil. One elderly woman told of giving birth to lifeless blobs of flesh, and stillborn infants, the end result of genetic mutations brought on by massive exposure to radioactive fallout. Children born with horrible birth defects, leaving them with no muscle coordination. Old newsreels repeatedly refer to those islanders as amiable savages. And a taped message showing a smiling President Reagan bidding the newly independent Marshall Islanders good luck reveals massive U.S. evil and cruelty that occurred well into the 1980s. Do we ever hear this on TV or in the news or in most classrooms on U.S. history? The horrors that this government has committed all over the world to millions of people. And then many people in this country think, well, why do they hate us? Crazy. Not enough nutrients can cause alcoholism. In experiments with rats, only 10% of those with full nutrition became alcoholic. And when nutrients were cut by 1/3, about 33% of those rats became alcoholic. And when nutrients were tripled for supernutrition, only 1% became alcoholic. In another study on people who boozed and smoked, an amazing 80%, 4 out of 5, stopped without even trying when they received super nutrition. Dr. John Douglas found that booze and cigarette addiction went away when those patients ate only raw foods. No willpower was needed. The craving for this poison, booze, and the cigarettes went away when they ate only raw foods. Raw foods tell our bodies what is good and what is bad for our health. Dr. Joseph Beasley started a clinic for alcoholics in New York with the highest success rate in the nation. And years earlier, this same doctor, Joseph Beasley, was severely alcoholic himself and had almost committed suicide. And his brother, a lawyer, died young from the booze. But the foundation of Dr. Joseph Beasley's recovery from alcoholism and his clinic's treatment program was good nutrition. Read his book, How to Defeat Alcoholism. How to Defeat Alcoholism by Dr. Joseph Beasley. If you're just coming out as a gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary person, do you know any straight friend you're quite sure will accept your being gay or bisexual or trans or non-binary? Tell that person. But if you are living with your parents and you are sure they would reject you, you may need to wait until you move out to tell them. Search for gay, bi, and trans and non-binary friends who will accept you, a family of choice. Search for straight friends who already have out gay, bi, trans, non-binary friends. When our birth family rejects us for who we are, we need to form a new family while still keeping our heart open if someday some of our birth family might open their hearts to us. It can happen, and sometimes does happen. When I told my friend Patty Quintana in the late 1970s here in Albuquerque, I am gay, she told me she knew from the first day I met her in 1970, years before. And when I told my friend Lupe Aldaldi in the late 1970s I am gay, he told me he knew from the first day I met him in 1969. I never had sex with any man until late 1976. Often friends, including straight friends, know someone is gay or bi or trans or non-binary years before that person knows or fully accepts who he or she is. My dear friends Bob and Alberta lived in the town of Freeport, Illinois, 6 miles from the farm where I grew up. And when I became close friends with them, they were an older couple. They had a business in their home. Many people went to them to renew state licenses for cars and trucks. That was their business. My parents went to them. And most people, however, never knew, and my parents never knew until years later when I told them, the sex lives of this ordinary-looking, older, white couple. Bob told me if the people of that town, Freeport, Illinois, knew how he felt on sex and on politics, he would be run out of town. Bob supported justice. Bob supported equality for black people. Bob supported justice and equality for women and for poor people. Bob was against U.S. wars. Bob and Alberta were open and honest with each other about their sex with other people. Little or no jealousy. They had 2 bisexual male friends, and Alberta got turned on watching these 2 men have sex with each other. And seeing her turned Bob on. Bob copied some gay sex tapes for me. He invited me to come watch his straight sex videos with him. He said he could watch the beautiful women and I could watch the handsome men. He had sex with other women, including a Catholic nun friend. A Catholic nun friend. And Alberta had sex with other men. I still have a cassette tape that Bob gave me maybe 25 or more years ago. A conversation that he and Alberta had in bed as they had sex. And Bob was asking Alberta, his wife, about the sex she and a hot young man friend had earlier. And hearing how turned on Alberta was in sex with that hot young man turned Bob on. And he kept asking her questions to get her to tell more. I have that cassette tape at home. And if any of you want to hear it, let me know. And maybe you can come hear it. One special man Alberta had sex with, she made a popsicle from some of his cum. A popsicle from some of his cum. She kept the popsicle in the freezer and would take it out sometimes and suck it as she thought of that man. The men and women Bob and Alberta had sex with were their friends, not strangers. I wish I could remember all Bob told me about their sex lives. Amazing. Bob died at 94 in 2005. Alberta died over 14 years before that. They were married 48 years when she died. And Alberta was Bob's number 1 woman. And after her death from cancer, Bob found no woman as special as Alberta. And they both were very kind, very generous to me. Bob and Alberta lived not in Paris, not in New York, not in San Francisco, but in Freeport, a town of 20-some thousand people. Most people who knew them had no idea what went on sexually behind closed doors in their home in the 1940s, 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Bob and Alberta were far more sexually liberated than many uptight, jealous young couples today. They were more sexually liberated than the many married men and women who have sex with other people but sadly lie to each other and deny the truth. A woman writes, "My father-in-law used to say, I know that smoking is not good for me, but I'd rather enjoy my time on earth and die a little earlier than deprive myself of the things I enjoy." Well, the woman says, unfortunately, Dad did not get very much more enjoyment because he had to have bypass surgery. And then he needed his arteries stripped so his brain could get proper blood supply. And then they stripped his femoral arteries not once but twice. He continued to smoke one cigarette after another. And as soon his leg got gangrene, and there was not enough artery to save, so they chopped his leg off, almost to his hip. Dad's other leg began to lose circulation. His coronary bypasses were clogging. Fortunately, he died before they did any further amputations. And this woman says, through all of this, Dad never deprived himself of the pleasure of smoking, but he deprived his family of having him around to celebrate his 60th birthday. Hundreds of jobs harm people and other animals and the earth far more than help. If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I grow tobacco or sell cigarettes in a store? If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I do a job torturing animals in a testing laboratory? How can I drive a Pepsi-Cola or Budweiser truck delivering those poisons? If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I farm with toxic chemicals? How can I sell luxury new clothes that were made in sweatshops? How can I design bombs for mass murder at Sandia or Los Alamos weapons labs? If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I be a lawyer or doctor getting filthy rich off other people's misery and mistakes? And I compliment those lawyers who do not get filthy rich, but they are in it to help people. If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I work for the CIA or work in a gambling casino? How can I run a sugar donut bakery? How can I raise animals on factory farms? If I care about life, if I care about people, how can I kill and butcher animals for people to eat? How can I install sprinkler systems for grass lawns in this desert? How can I work in a shopping mall selling high-priced stuff nobody needs? Hundreds of jobs harm people and the earth far more than help. Hundreds of jobs are not worth doing, no matter how much you're paid. And if you're in one of these jobs now because of money problems to survive, make up your mind to start now, to live simply, and to change jobs as soon as possible in order to help people and the earth, even if you're paid much less. I worked for years, part-time, in my parents' cattle and hog business. And sadly, I participated in much cruelty to those animals many years ago. Learn from my mistake. The black South African Bishop Desmond Tutu was a hero of conscience and bravery. For many years, Desmond Tutu strongly protested publicly the brutal evil of white supremacy government that tortured, jailed, and murdered many black South Africans. And after democracy came in 1994, Desmond Tutu worked to bring healing. He worked to bring reconciliation between former enemies, whites and blacks. He insisted on the nation telling and hearing the truth about the massive, bloody, racist horrors that whites had committed against blacks for many years. Desmond Tutu fought for equality for all people, men and women, of all skin colors, beliefs, all backgrounds. And as a gay man, I strongly compliment and thank Desmond Tutu for supporting lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. As a humble man, Desmond Tutu wanted no expensive, fancy casket. His plain, simple, small pine casket had rope handles. What an inspiring example for all of us. He wanted no expensive, fancy casket. He died December 26, 2001, at age 90. The poem War by Peace Pilgrim. On the scarred battlefield where they forced me to go, I met a man that they said was my enemy, and I ran him through with my blade. And when I pulled it out, and his blood gushed forth, I was suddenly filled with racking remorse. I've killed a man, I said. He was slim and youthful and frightened like me. Not a devil, as they said he would be. They sent me to kill you, he sighed. By God, I wish you had done so, I swore. Why, I don't even know what I'm fighting for. Nor I. He breathed and died. The poem War by Peace Pilgrim. And no matter how much I disagree with someone's habits or beliefs, I want to look for what we have in common and what I can learn from that person. No matter how much I disagree with someone's habits or beliefs, I want to look for what I can sincerely compliment in that person. I thank Mark, Eddie, and Travis for their excellent help dozens of times running the cameras and the controls for my program. And thanks to all of you watching. If you see me anywhere, I welcome you to talk with me if you want to. I love personal questions, and I realize that most people, I think, have never heard a friend or relative say that and mean that. But I love personal questions. I treasure heart-to-heart conversations. to your health and to my health. Fresh piss. No sodas, no booze, none of that crap, but fresh piss for health. Good night.
Live every day as if it were the last, because before you know it, time goes past and life's just not that